You know, there are so many pitfalls that founders make when they look for capital. I mean, that's a whole nother talk about the...
Tell us about those. Like, what are some of those pitfalls? Like, there are a lot of founders here at different stages, and they're raising, some are not raising, but they're trying to build great companies. What are the things that you look out for?
And there are so many, but I'll give you like the top 3 or the top 4. Asking for someone, so first of all, this is quite obvious, but skin in the game, right? So if you're a founder and you haven't exhausted every source of capital you possibly can, from yourself, from your friends, your family, your loved ones, to put into what you are doing, and you have the fucking balls to ask someone else for money, forget about it. I'm just gonna put it out. I curse a lot, so please edit this or don't. So, skin in the game, super important, right? If you wouldn't mortgage your house to do what you're doing because you love it so much, why should I? As a case study, one of the startups that we invested in as an accelerator, Startupbootcamp 2.5 years ago, is a digital bank called Kuda, K-U-D-A, Kuda Bank. It's Nigeria's leading digital bank. So, I mean, I'm not sure if many of you here have lived in Europe. Are you familiar with N26? Oh, you're German, right? N26, yeah. Or Monzo in the UK. These are Revolut. I'm sure you've heard of Revolut. So Kuda is the Revolut or the N26 of Africa, right? Kuda Bank was part of our accelerator 2.5 years ago. The founder, Babs Ogundeyi, was just a regular bloke. I mean, on Friday afternoons, he shared Nando's chicken meals with us, and he was, you know, just a poor founder, but very smart founder. And where was I going with this? Fuck, I got carried away. I'm talking about...
You're talking about skin in the game.
Oh, yes.
Skin in the
Little did we know that Babs, Babs mortgaged his own house. He took a second mortgage on his house that he could put that money into work in his company. He believed so much in the future of digital banking that he says, I don't care. And that is fucking impressive, because you know that you've got skin in the game. Fast forward a few years, that startup is now worth close to $500 million. And he's got money from people like Peter Thiel, right? Co-founder of PayPal. Nigerian bloke in Lagos, right? So skin in the game is a no-brainer. And the second thing is founders that pay them ridiculous salaries. I'm sorry, you can't say, hey, I was at McKinsey 2 years ago and I made $20,000 a month. I'm like, you're not at McKinsey anymore, so shut the fuck up. You're running your own company. Your reward is your equity, right? So the founder of Kuda Bank was paying himself $2,000 a month, barely enough, but he's worth more than $100 million today. So you earn in equity, if you believe. So that's number one rule, is founders that don't have skin in the game, right? It's just a show of, and pay themselves too much, right? That's one. Number two is when you go and ask, and so assuming you've done that, you have skin in the game and you've exhausted friends and family and all of that, is not knowing why you're asking someone for money. Right, so the number of founders that have pitched to us, and other VC funds, that say, okay, why are you raising capital? For what? And how long is your runway? What is your plan?
So we're raising capital for operations, or just to spend, right? Like, every business needs money, right?
So, rule of thumb, if you are raising money to finance assets, to buy machines, working capital, to buy space, to buy just assets, CapEx. Don't go to a VC. Don't go to angels. Raise debt. Debt is the cheapest form of capital. To a lot of people it's counterintuitive, but debt is the cheapest form of capital. Why? Because there is no recourse to pay it back. Sorry, there is no loss of earnings to you as the founder by taking on debt. So it's simple, old school accounting 101, asset liability matching. If I'm raising capital for a factor of production, which is an asset, I take a liability cancels out an asset. Literally go back to high school. A equals L plus E. Asset, liability, and equity. Liability cancels out an asset. If you're raising money to build technology, to hire a team, to spend on marketing, raise equity. Nothing wrong with that. Because VCs and angels want to pay for one thing and one thing only. What is that? Growth. Nothing else. I don't fucking care how profitable you are. I want to see you go from 100 users this month to 250 users next month. So if you're using my money for marketing, for customer acquisition, to hiring shit-hot salespeople or marketing people or tech people to make your product incredible, I'll give you money. If I'm hiring, if you want my money to build a factory or to build a warehouse or to buy a machine, no fucking way. There are other people that fund that. If you want to raise money for R&D, approach the government, approach TIA, approach the IDC, approach the NEF. There are hundreds of organizations that fund R&D, not VCs. So it's understanding what the use of your capital is. And if you're talking to a real VC fund, you can't fool us because we've seen hundreds of companies. So you can't say, hey, I need 100,000 Rand to do this. I'm like, no, it doesn't cost that much, right? So know what the funding is used for. Number 3, which is probably the biggest fuck up that founders make, is they don't know who they're talking to. So knowing what your investors typically invest in. So if you're talking to an angel, slightly different to talking to a VC fund. Now, if you're talking to a VC fund, what should you keep in mind? A, do research on who they have invested in before. Most VC funds list their portfolio companies on their websites. If you don't know, find out, right? Talk to portfolio companies that have gotten money from that VC fund. Say, hey, I'm looking to approach Knife Capital. I know that you got invested from Knife Capital. Tell me about your experience. What is your management style? What's your investment style? Get information on how the VC fund invests. Understand what their strategy is, what they're looking for in return. So do enough research on your investor as they would do on you. The number of founders that completely treat all VCs the same, say, I need some fucking money, I'm broke. And they do the same pitch, they're like, you haven't prepared for this meeting. So knowing what your VC fund or the VC fund that you're pitching to does, you know what is very, very attractive? I had a founder approach us 3 weeks ago. I mean, like, it's like dating to a large extent. And they're like, oh, Zach, I know that you've got a portfolio of 30, 40 companies in your fund. I noticed that you invested in this debt collection company in Nigeria that does an AI channel to collect debt. And you've also invested in a company that does unsecured lending. Guess what? We do XYZ, and we think we could help that company perform better by this. And my jaw goes from here to here. I'm like, what? You've done so much research on not just me as a fund, but our portfolio companies, and you've made the effort to even think about how you can benefit my portfolio companies. I love you. That almost never happens. But if it does, it's a switch in your head. And the next mistake, and I'll stop there with the pitfalls, is you walk into a VC's office or someone's office and you're asking for money, and you overstate what you've achieved. A VC will normally ask you, okay, so you're raising $1 million. Okay, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. I see you've got some traction. And you overstate 2 things. You overstate your clients, and you overstate your investors, right? What people forget is that the VC industry in Africa and globally is pretty damn small. So if you go and say, I'm talking to Havaic, I'm talking to Enigma, I'm talking to Kalon, I'm talking to, E4E, I'm talking to this, and I've got a term sheet from this, and they've committed, $500,000, blah, 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 blah. What do I do? Or what do other VCs do? Whilst you're talking, I take my phone, and I'm WhatsApping Clive. Hey, have you spoken to Justin from this company? Have you? Nope, never heard of him. Or it's an email. Yeah. I'm like, okay, Andrea, so-and-so is saying that you've got a term sheet. I replied saying I was interested. So people, so literally, during the meeting, I've already checked, because my partner is talking Q&A, I'm checking. I'm like, for the VCs that you mentioned, don't even know you, or they've replied in less than what you said. So just be honest. It's perfectly okay to speak the truth, right? That is, yeah. And then overstating clients, right? So just be real, because we know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And then just have the pragmatism to really understand your market properly and dive deep into it before pitching to a VC. The reality is, let's say you're an ed tech company, right? Or someone mentioned that they were doing recruitment, a tech platform for recruitment. And I would ask you, what is your competition, right? I can tell you now, tech platforms for recruitment in South Africa alone, there are probably about 20 companies that do it in Cape Town alone. And if you don't know at least half of those, it just augurs not so good. Because I'm like, why should I as an investor or my team know more about your industry than you do? And unfortunately, investors are at a slight advantage because they see lots of pitches. So it is up to you, and you are beholden as a founder to know your market better than anyone else. Because if you don't, who should? So these are all major pitfalls. And I can tell you now, the decision that a VC makes happens in the first 10 minutes of meeting you. And then people are too polite to say no. So they'll say, yeah, I'll get back to you, and blah, 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 send me more information. And that's something that VCs should learn better, is I always say, rather a quick no than a long no. So we do that a lot. If we really like someone, we have follow-up calls the following week. If we don't like someone, then literally the next day, we'll, oh, no, 48 hours, sorry, not a fit, because, and we always give reasons, right? So those are some of the pitfalls that founders should just be aware of before they talk to
Brilliant. VCs. Cool. A big hand for Zach, please.